Aris stood near the edge of the ballroom, fingers resting lightly on Luca's shoulder. Music floated across polished floors. Laughter rose and fell in controlled bursts. Every face looked forward, dressed for success and certainty. Luca leaned closer to her side. He watched the crowd with calm focus, too young to care about status, old enough to sense shifts in mood. Aris breathed slow. She reminded herself why she came. Support for her sister. One evening, no history attached. Yet her chest tightened. The room felt smaller by the second. Conversations blurred into noise. Applause started near the stage, sudden and unified. Luca tilted his head. "Mom," he whispered, eyes still forward, "why do people clap before someone speaks?" Aris did not answer at once. Because some moments arrive before you feel ready. The host's voice carried across the room, confident and polished. A name followed. Applause rose again, louder this time. Seasoned Virex stepped onto the stage. Tailored suit. Controlled smile. A presence built through years of discipline and distance. He moved with ease, the kind learned through boardrooms and headlines. Aris felt the air leave her lungs. Time narrowed. The room faded. Her focus locked on the man she once knew before success hardened his edges. Before absence replaced closeness. Luca watched him with quiet interest. "He looks important," he said. Aris swallowed. She had not prepared for this face, this voice, this version of him shaped by power and visibility. She had walked into a room she thought was safe. Instead, she walked into a past that stood taller than memory. Season began to speak. His voice moved with calm authority, measured and steady. The room listened. Luca's gaze stayed fixed on the stage. His brow furrowed, not with awe, but curiosity. He tugged Aris's hand. "Mom," he asked softly, careful not to disturb her. "Why does he look like me?" The question landed without force, yet it struck deeper than noise ever could. Aris froze. Her heartbeat pressed against her ribs. She felt the weight of years close in at once. She had prepared answers for many questions. Not this one. Not here. She lowered her eyes to Luca. His face carried pieces of her. But there was more. The curve of his mouth. The set of his jaw. Details she had learned to stop noticing. Across the room, Season paused mid-sentence. His gaze drifted. Just for a second, it brushed past her, then returned. Aris straightened slowly. She kept her expression calm, even as her thoughts rushed ahead of her breath. This was no longer a coincidence. This was timing with teeth. She had built her life on careful distance. Different cities, different routines, no overlap. She believed space could hold history at bay. She was wrong. Season's eyes met hers again. This time, they did not pass. They stayed. A flicker of recognition crossed his face, followed by focus, then confusion. He adjusted his stance, missed a word, recovered. Aris felt the pull of memory without surrendering to it. She did not step back. She did not shield Luca. She stood as she always had, steady, composed, unwilling to shrink. Luca leaned into her side. She felt his trust in the simple weight of his body. That trust steadied her more than any plan ever had. She understood the stakes in a single, quiet beat. The truth had entered the room without invitation. Aris kept her eyes forward as the room settled again. Season continued speaking, unaware of how much had already changed. Applause returned on cue. Smiles followed habit. Inside her, resolve took shape. Some truths wait because revealing them requires courage at the wrong moment. Some choices protect peace, even when they carry weight. She had lived by that belief for years. And now, the cost of silence stood in front of her. Welcome back to Love Tales with Mr. Easton, a place for stories about timing, dignity, and the quiet decisions people make when no one watches. If you believe love should grow with respect and accountability, subscribe and stay close. These stories matter because real life asks hard questions. Have you ever walked into a room and found someone tied to a life-altering secret? Someone you thought time had placed safely behind you? Tonight's story faces the price of waiting. It looks at what happens when patience replaces presence and when silence feels safer than truth. Aris made a choice years ago. She chose calm over conflict, distance over demand, but every choice leaves a mark. Stay with this story to see why she walked away, how a child grew in peace, and what happens when the past demands to be seen. Eris met Season before his name carried weight, back when success still required explanation, back when his schedule bent instead of ruled. They met through proximity, not pursuit, a shared introduction that felt ordinary at first. No spectacle, no urgency. He listened more than he spoke. She noticed that first. The way he paused before answering. The way he considered words as decisions, not filler. Season was building something then. Long days, lean teams, restless nights spent refining ideas that refused to settle. Yet when he was with Eris, he arrived fully. He did not check the time. He did not rush silence. He spoke about plans without selling them. Ambition sat beside him, not above him. Eris saw his drive clearly. She did not mistake it for carelessness. She admired discipline when it came with presence. She lived her own life with equal intent. Her work mattered to her. Her routines anchored her. She was not looking to be absorbed into someone else's future. That balance defined them early. They met in quiet places, corners of restaurants that did not demand attention, long walks after late meals, conversations that stretched without agenda. They learned each other without witnesses. Season spoke about pressure, about proving himself without losing himself. Eris listened without offering solutions. She never tried to manage his climb. She understood momentum but valued grounding. She noticed how his phone stayed face down then, how deadlines waited until after conversations ended. He still knew how to be still. That mattered to her. Their relationship stayed private by choice, not secrecy, intention. They did not need an audience to confirm what existed. They trusted what was present. Eris never asked where it was going. Season never promised where it would land. That unspoken agreement gave them freedom. Love felt like addition, not negotiation. But even in those early days, signs existed. Small ones. Season canceled plans with explanations that made sense. He spoke about growth with urgency that edged into fixation. He carried weight that followed him into rooms meant for rest. Eris noticed, quietly. She did not challenge it yet. She believed early pressure often passes. She believed space given early allows strength later. Season did not see the warning signs. He believed success required endurance before ease. He assumed connection would remain intact while he focused elsewhere. At that stage, love still fit between effort and ambition. It had room. It breathed. Neither of them knew how narrow that space would become. Love does not fail at once. It weakens when attention gets deferred, even during beginnings. Their connection thrived away from noise. Eris and Season chose privacy because it protected clarity. What they shared belonged to them, untouched by opinion or expectation. They learned each other through habit. Morning coffee taken slowly when schedules allowed. Evenings spent cooking simple meals without distraction. Season found relief in these moments. He did not need to perform. Eris never asked him to be more than present. She valued how he showed care through consistency. He remembered details without effort. How she preferred quiet music. How she organized her space. How she needed time to think before responding. He adjusted naturally. No negotiation required. Season admired Eris for her steadiness. She was grounded without rigidity, independent without distance. She did not orbit his ambition. She carried her own direction. That equality shaped their rhythm. They shared laughter that came easily, not loud, not forced. The kind born from familiarity. Inside jokes formed quickly. Silence never felt awkward. They trusted pauses. Their relationship avoided spectacle. No dramatic declarations. No public displays. What they built relied on daily choice rather than display. That restraint made it feel solid. Eris did not lose herself inside him. She maintained her routines, her friendships, her goals. Season respected that without needing reassurance. He liked knowing she stayed because she wanted to, not because she needed to. Balance lived in the details. He made time because he chose to. She waited without resentment because he returned when promised. They believed trust worked best without constant testing. Yet balance requires maintenance. Season's responsibilities began expanding. Travel increased. Meetings extended. Even when present, his mind sometimes wandered. Eris noticed the shift in subtle ways. His laughter arrived a second late. His responses shortened. His focus fractured. She did not confront him. Not yet. She believed awareness would come naturally. She believed love built on respect would self-correct. Season still tried. He rearranged schedules when possible. He apologized when he missed moments. He meant it, but effort began competing with pressure. Eris held space. She believed patience strengthened bonds. She believed support meant allowing growth. What neither realized was how balance changes shape quietly, how warmth cools when routine slips, how privacy protects until silence replaces sharing. Their connection remained real. It remained caring, but it no longer rested evenly. Balance fades when presence becomes conditional, even when intentions stay kind. Season's ambition was never hidden. Eris understood this from the start. He spoke about growth with clarity. He planned years ahead, not months. His vision extended beyond comfort. What mattered was how he carried it. At first, ambition sat beside him like purpose, not burden. He managed his time with care. When he committed to Eris, he honored it. Meetings ended early. Flights shifted. He made space without complaint. Presence defined him then. He asked questions and waited for answers. He listened fully. He absorbed moments as if aware they mattered. Eris saw that awareness and trusted it. As his responsibilities increased, he tried to protect what they had. He adjusted rather than withdrew. He apologized when late. He followed through when possible. Yet pressure began to shape his days. Conversations turned toward deadlines. His mind stayed engaged even during rest. Eris noticed the strain before he admitted it. She encouraged balance without pushing. She reminded him rest supported clarity. She believed love worked best through understanding rather than demand. Season appreciated her patience. He leaned on it. Without intending to, he relied on her stability as assurance that what they shared would remain steady no matter how stretched he became. That belief created risk. He postponed conversations he should have had. He delayed addressing shifts he sensed but avoided. He assumed connection could pause without weakening. Eris felt the change. He was present in body, less so in spirit. She adjusted first. She shortened conversations when he seemed distracted. She avoided adding weight to his schedule. She told herself this was temporary. That growth required seasons of strain. Season believed that too. Neither acknowledged how often presence now needed effort rather than instinct, how planning replaced spontaneity, how love waited more often than it arrived. The imbalance was not dramatic. It was gradual. It passed unnoticed because no single moment marked its start. Ambition did not erase care, but it redirected focus. Presence began competing with purpose, and competition always leaves something behind. Love weakens when ambition consumes attention meant for connection. Eris had always lived with intention. Long before Season entered her life, she knew how to stand steady without leaning. Independence was not a statement for her. It was a habit. She planned her days with care. She valued quiet mornings and evenings that returned her to herself. She did not confuse attachment with identity. With Season, she remained herself. She did not rearrange her life to fit his. She adjusted when it felt mutual. When it did not, she stayed grounded. That balance allowed her to love without losing clarity. Eris observed more than she spoke. She believed patterns revealed more than promises. She noticed when Season arrived tired but attentive. She noticed when fatigue lingered longer than it should. She noticed how often he paused mid-thought, distracted by something unseen. She did not rush to label these shifts. She believed awareness required patience. She believed reacting too early created tension where understanding might work better. Her calm came from self-trust. She knew what she needed to feel secure. She did not chase reassurance. She did not ask questions meant to soothe fear rather than seek truth. When Season grew distant in small ways, Eris adjusted without resentment. She shortened visits when he seemed drained. She chose silence when conversation felt forced. She preserved ease rather than pushing closeness that no longer came naturally. This was not avoidance. It was discernment. Eris believed love should feel steady, not strained. She believed people showed commitment through how they returned, not how they promised. She waited to see whether Season would notice the space forming. She never doubted his care. She doubted his availability. Her independence gave her clarity others might have missed. She did not fear being alone. She feared becoming an afterthought. As days passed, she watched how often he postponed personal moments for professional ones, how frequently rest became optional. how his attention divided even during shared time. She did not accuse him of neglect. She did not dramatize absence. She simply took note. Eris valued honesty, but she also valued timing. She believed conversations should happen when both people had space to hear them. Season rarely did, so she waited. She believed patience would reveal whether his presence was temporary or conditional. She believed observation would guide her choices better than confrontation. Her calm did not mean she felt less. It meant she understood herself well enough to recognize when love began asking her to compensate. What held Eris and Season together was not excitement. It was rhythm. Their strongest moments lived inside repetition. Morning light through open windows. Evenings spent side by side without agenda. Simple meals prepared together. Quiet walks taken after long days. Stillness they chose rather than filled. Season found relief in these routines. They grounded him. They reminded him he existed beyond expectation. With Eris, he did not need to perform success. He could arrive as himself. Eris valued how these moments softened him, how his shoulders lowered when pressure faded, how his voice slowed, how presence returned when noise fell away. They learned each other through these pauses, not through declarations, through habit, through reliability, through the comfort of knowing what came next. Routine created safety. It allowed intimacy to grow without urgency. Love unfolded without needing to prove itself. Eris noticed how Season responded best during these times. He listened more. He laughed easier. He shared doubts he never voiced elsewhere. He admitted fear without framing it as weakness. Those admissions mattered to her. They showed trust. They showed awareness. Stillness gave their connection depth. It allowed them to exist without roles, without titles, without future planning. Just two people choosing to share space. But stillness requires protection. As Season's responsibilities increased, these routines began shifting. Meals shortened, walks postponed, evenings replaced by calls that stretched longer than expected. They tried to adapt. They compressed moments. They rescheduled calm. They told themselves flexibility was strength. Yet something changed when stillness became rare. Conversations lost ease. Silences filled with distraction rather than comfort. Routine gave way to negotiation. Eris felt the difference clearly. Stillness no longer arrived naturally. It required effort, planning, compromise that leaned unevenly. Season noticed too, though he framed it differently. He believed pressure would ease soon. That routine would return when demand settled. Eris did not share that certainty. She knew how easily calm erodes when not defended. Love built on shared stillness weakens when quiet becomes scarce. Not through conflict, but through neglect. She did not say this aloud. She watched. The change did not announce itself. There was no moment Eris could point to and say, "This is where things shifted." The difference lived in pacing, in pauses, in what no longer arrived when expected. Messages once sent without thought began to arrive later, not ignored, delayed. Replies still carried warmth, but they lost texture. Fewer questions, shorter reflections. Conversations that once wandered now moved with purpose, then stopped. Eris noticed the pattern before she felt hurt by it. She paid attention to timing more than tone. Season still cared. That was clear. But care expressed through intention began to replace care expressed through presence. Calls moved around his schedule. When they spoke, he listened, yet part of him remained elsewhere. She heard it in the spaces between his words, in the way he answered while already preparing to move on. Plans changed quietly. Dinners postponed. Visits rescheduled without replacement dates. Each shift made sense on its own. Together, they formed a distance. Eris did not accuse him of pulling away. She believed distance did not always mean disinterest. She believed pressure reshaped availability. She believed love endured seasons. She adjusted first. She stopped initiating as often. She waited to see if he would notice. She reduced expectations rather than demand reassurance. She chose calm over urgency. Season did not see the change as loss. He saw it as flexibility. He trusted what they shared would hold without constant tending. He assumed connection could stretch without thinning. Eris felt the thinning. She missed the ease of uninterrupted attention. She missed conversations that ended naturally rather than abruptly. She missed being the place his mind rested instead of passed through. Still, she remained measured. She did not dramatize absence. She did not express frustration she had not yet clarified for herself. She believed naming distance too early could create strain where patience might heal. She believed love worked best when given room. What she did not yet see was how silence can train people, how absence, once accepted, begins to settle into routine, how distance, when unchallenged, learns to stay. Easton continued forward, unaware that what he postponed quietly reshaped their bond. He trusted time. He trusted future ease. Eris trusted observation. And in that waiting, communication continued to fade. Not enough to end anything. Enough to change everything. Eris believed timing mattered. She had learned early that words spoken too soon often landed wrong. So she waited, not from fear, from judgment. She sensed the shift, but resisted naming it aloud. She told herself clarity came through calm, not pressure. Easton carried enough weight already. Adding emotional demands felt unfair when he still showed care, even if unevenly. She chose patience as a form of respect. When replies came late, she answered without remark. When calls shortened, she adjusted her expectations. When plans changed, she reorganized her time instead of questioning his priorities. This was not silence born from weakness. It came from confidence. Eris trusted herself enough to know she did not need constant reassurance. She trusted Easton enough to believe he would notice if something important drifted. She also trusted patterns. She watched whether he asked about her day with the same interest, whether he followed up on things she mentioned before, whether he noticed when she grew quieter. These details mattered more than grand gestures. Patience allowed her to see clearly. Confrontation, she believed, should come when both people had space to listen. Easton rarely did. His days were layered with urgency. His nights carried exhaustion. She did not want her concerns absorbed into that noise. So, she held them. She chose softness over challenge, understanding over demand. She believed love thrived when given grace during strain. Easton interpreted her patience as stability. He leaned into it. He assumed her calm meant comfort. He did not realize it also meant observation. Eris noticed how easily silence filled gaps where a conversation once lived. She noticed how often she adjusted while he remained focused forward. She noted these things without resentment, but not without awareness. Patience gave her time to ask herself harder questions. Was she waiting for a temporary season to pass, or was she adjusting to a new normal? Was she supporting growth, or slowly accommodating distance? She did not answer yet. She believed rushing clarity could distort truth. She believed waiting would reveal whether connection returned on its own or required pursuit. In choosing patience, Eris protected her peace. But patience also trained her to carry weight alone. She did not yet see how much she was holding. Only that holding felt easier than pushing. The realization came quietly. No rush, no drama. Just a moment that refused to be ignored. Eris stood alone in her apartment one morning, the city still half asleep. Light filtered in through the windows, soft and steady. She moved through her routine without hurry. Coffee warming, water running, familiar motions guiding her hands. Something felt off. It was not fear that stopped her. It was instinct. A pause in the middle of movement. A sense that her body was asking for attention she had delayed giving. When certainty arrived, it did not shout. It settled. She sat down slowly, grounding herself in the weight of the moment. Her first response was not panic. It was clarity, a deep, unmistakable knowing. Joy came first, pure, unfiltered. She placed a hand over her stomach and closed her eyes. A quiet smile formed before thought could interrupt it. Life had shifted. Something new had begun. Then reality followed. Her breath slowed. Her mind moved forward. Timing, circumstance, absence. She thought of Easton immediately, not as he was now, but as he had been. Present, attentive, engaged. She remembered how carefully he once listened, how deliberate he was with commitments. She imagined telling him, the words forming in her mind, the pause before his response, the weight that news would carry in a life already stretched thin. The room felt smaller. Eris did not doubt his integrity. She doubted the moment. She doubted whether the truth would arrive as a gift or a burden. She feared it would sound like pressure instead of partnership. She sat with the truth longer than expected. She let it settle without decision. She did not rush to call. She did not reach for reassurance. She listened to herself. Her independence sharpened her awareness. She knew what she was capable of. She knew what support looked like when freely given. She did not want care offered out of obligation. The joy remained. It did not fade. But it now shared space with concern, with responsibility, with the knowledge that this truth would reshape more than one life. She realized something else in that stillness. Whatever choice she made next would define her path forward. She stood, steadier than before. The truth existed now, whether spoken or not. Eris lived with the question for days before giving it shape. Tell him now, or wait. The words circled without landing. Each option carried weight. Each demanded something different from her. She imagined calling Season in the middle of his day. She pictured the pause on his end, the quick mental shift from expansion to responsibility. She knew how fast his world moved. She feared the news would arrive like an interruption rather than a shared moment. She imagined waiting, letting time create space, letting him settle into a steadier rhythm before adding something permanent. That path felt calmer. It also felt lonely. Eris weighed honesty against timing. She did not believe truth needed urgency to be valid. She believed truth needed the right conditions to be received with care. Her independence sharpened the conflict. She knew she could move forward alone if needed. That knowledge gave her strength. It also complicated the choice. She did not want to use capability as a shield against connection. She asked herself hard questions in quiet moments. Would telling him now bring them closer, or bind him to a situation he had not chosen? Would waiting protect peace, or postpone pain? She listened to her body. She paid attention to her breath. She noticed how calm returned when she imagined waiting, how tension rose when she imagined speaking too soon. Eris did not confuse calm with avoidance. She understood the difference. Calm came from alignment. Avoidance came from fear. What she felt was alignment with care. She remembered how Season responded to pressure, how his focus narrowed, how responsibility weighed heavier than emotion. She feared the news would force him into a role before he felt ready to inhabit it fully. She did not want a reaction shaped by urgency. She wanted a choice shaped by presence. The question followed her through daily routines. It sat beside her at work. It returned in the evenings. She did not rush it out of discomfort. She let it stay until clarity formed. Clarity arrived slowly. She realized there was no perfect moment, only moments that asked for courage. She also realized courage looked different depending on context. For now, she chose to wait. Not forever. Not out of fear. Out of respect for the life she carried and the stability she wanted to offer. Waiting felt honest. It felt grounded. It felt like protecting something fragile until it could be held without strain. The decision did not end the conflict. It simply set direction. Eris understood the difference between being wanted and being required. She had lived long enough to know how quickly love changed shape when duty entered the room too early. That fear settled quietly beside her decision. She did not worry that Season would walk away. What unsettled her was the opposite. That he would stay for the wrong reasons. That he would show up out of responsibility rather than desire. That commitment would arrive wrapped in pressure instead of intention. She had seen it happen to others. Relationships held together by obligation, not connection. Partners who stayed because leaving felt wrong, not because staying felt right. She refused that path for herself. Eris valued choice above comfort. She wanted to be chosen freely, not tethered to circumstance. She wanted love offered with clarity, not compliance. The thought of telling Season now raised a sharp image in her mind. Him recalibrating his life instantly. Him rearranging plans out of necessity. Him carrying weight before he had time to feel joy. She did not want to become a task on his list. She thought about the life she hoped to build, a home rooted in calm, a child raised in certainty. She did not want tension shaping early foundations. Eris trusted Season's character. She trusted his sense of responsibility, but she questioned timing. She questioned whether responsibility would arrive first and crowd out the space where affection should live. She did not want gratitude mistaken for love. She did not want presence earned through duty rather than desire. That fear guided her silence more than uncertainty ever could. She reminded herself she was not withholding truth to control outcome. She was protecting the meaning of choice. She believed real commitment required freedom to accept or step back without consequence. She also knew her silence carried cost. Waiting meant carrying weight alone. It meant planning without consultation. It meant adjusting expectations quietly. She accepted that cost. Eris believed obligation weakened connection when introduced too soon. She believed love thrived best when chosen without pressure. So she held the truth close. She allowed time to pass. She trusted that when the moment came, it would arrive with space for real decision. Fear did not rule her. Values did. Season's world accelerated without pause. What once felt demanding now felt relentless. Growth stacked upon growth. New investors, new expectations. Each win brought another layer of responsibility. His days began earlier. His nights ended later. Travel filled gaps once reserved for rest. Success demanded attention with no regard for balance. He did not notice how fully it consumed him. When he spoke to Eris, his tone stayed kind. His interest stayed genuine. Yet his focus fractured. He listened while thinking ahead. He responded while planning next steps. Presence became partial. Season believed this phase was temporary. He believed stability waited on the other side of expansion. He believed love endured strain if intention stayed good. He trusted momentum more than reflection. Meetings replaced pauses. Deadlines replaced quiet. He told himself sacrifice came before ease, that once he secured what he built, life would slow again. Eris watched this shift from the outside. She heard how often his voice carried urgency. She felt how rarely he asked open questions anymore. She noticed how conversations circled logistics rather than connection. She did not blame him. She understood ambition. She respected discipline. She saw how much he carried. But she also saw what fell away. Season missed small details now. He forgot follow-ups. He delayed conversations that required emotional bandwidth. He assumed what mattered most would wait. He did not realize how often he postponed return. Eris observed without interference. She recognized the pattern clearly. Expansion demanded all of him. There was little left to offer without effort. She understood something then that settled quietly in her chest. Even if she spoke now, even if she shared the truth, it would land inside a life already stretched thin. She imagined his reaction shaped by obligation rather than availability. She imagined him trying to give more than he had. That vision unsettled her. Season did not see the distance as emotional. He framed it as practical. He believed providing later justified absence now. He did not see how emotional absence builds its own weight. Eris realized his life left no space for unexpected truth. No room for something that required patience, learning, adjustment. She did not judge him for it. She simply acknowledged it. Expansion had absorbed him fully. And until that changed, presence would remain conditional. Clarity did not arrive as heartbreak. It arrived as understanding. Eris recognized the distance not through absence alone, but through pattern. She paid attention to how often she adjusted while Season continued forward unchanged. How often she paused her needs while his remained immediate. She noticed how conversations ended before they reached depth. How updates replaced sharing. How presence became something scheduled rather than felt. The realization did not bring anger. It brought calm resolve. She understood then that the gap between them was no longer circumstantial. It was structural, built by choices repeated often enough to feel normal. Eris accepted a truth she had been circling. Even if she spoke now, even if she shared everything, Season could not meet the moment fully. Not because he lacked care, because his life had no margin. She stopped waiting for him to notice. She stopped hoping awareness would rise on its own. She stopped measuring days by what might return. That release felt grounding. She saw how easily love adapts when asked, how quietly it shrinks when asked too often. She recognized how much she had already softened herself to protect what remained. She did not blame herself. She did not blame him. She simply saw the shape of things clearly. Eris understood that distance was not always loud. Sometimes it arrived politely, wrapped in good intentions, explained by progress, accepted through patience. But distance still carried consequence. She thought about the life growing within her, about stability, about consistency, about presence that did not require negotiation. She understood then what mattered most. Emotional distance, once recognized, demanded decision, not confrontation, direction. She chose to step back rather than push forward. She chose peace over persuasion. She chose to protect what she could offer rather than ask someone else to stretch further. That choice did not erase care. It preserved dignity. Eris accepted that silence had shaped outcomes already. It had given her clarity. It had shown her limits. It had revealed what waiting would continue to cost. She did not know what the future held. She did not plan beyond the next step. She only knew what she could no longer ignore. Distance, seen clearly, no longer confuses. It instructs. Before the story moves forward, pause here for a moment. If you were in Eris's place, would you speak now, or would you wait until life felt steadier? Would you protect your peace, or risk everything on timing? Share your answer in the comments. Your voice matters here. And if stories about love, restraint, and hard choices speak to you, like the video and subscribe to Love Tales with Mr. Easton. These stories stay with you because they mirror real life. Eris chose her moment carefully, not because she feared the conversation, but because she respected it. She waited for a time when Season was not rushing between obligations, when his attention could rest without interruption. They spoke quietly. No raised voices. No tension filling the air. Just two people who knew each other well enough to avoid performance. She did not list grievances. She did not revisit old disappointments. She spoke plainly. "I need space," she said. Not as a test, not as a threat, as a statement of need. Season looked at her, surprised but not defensive. He listened. That had always been one of his strengths. He asked what she meant. She answered with care. She explained that she felt stretched thin by waiting, that she needed time to recalibrate, that she wanted to step back and regain clarity, rather than continue adjusting quietly. She did not accuse him of neglect. She did not frame the request as failure. She made it about alignment. Eris understood how easily conversations could turn into negotiations. She avoided that. She was not asking for change. She was asking for distance. She told him she needed to breathe without expectation, to think without managing someone else's pace, to reconnect with herself. Season absorbed her words slowly. He did not interrupt. He did not argue. He nodded, thoughtful, processing what this meant. For Eris, speaking felt grounding. She had carried the weight internally for too long. Naming it released tension she had normalized. She did not mention the pregnancy, not because she hid it, but because this conversation was not about future obligations. It was about present truth. She watched Season closely as she spoke. She noticed how quickly he accepted the request, how little he questioned it, how smoothly he adjusted his expectations. That reaction mattered more than any reassurance could have. When the conversation ended, Eris felt lighter, not relieved, clear. She had asked for space without apology, without drama, without justification beyond honesty. In that moment, she honored herself. Season did not challenge Eris's request. He did not ask her to reconsider. He did not reach for reassurance or attempt to reframe the moment as temporary confusion. He listened. Then he accepted it. "I understand," he said quietly. There was no struggle in his voice, no urgency, no attempt to hold the moment in place. He asked practical questions. How much space she needed, whether she planned to travel, whether she wanted to stay in touch. Eris answered calmly. She did not over-explain. She did not soften the request to protect his feelings. She gave clarity instead. Season nodded again. He respected her tone. He respected her choice. That had always been part of who he was. Yet his ease unsettled her. She had expected concern, perhaps curiosity, maybe even a request to talk more. Instead, he adjusted with efficiency. He treated the change like a schedule shift rather than an emotional turning point. That response told her more than words ever could. Season believed in momentum. He adapted quickly to circumstances. That skill had served him well in business. Here, it revealed something else. He trusted that what they shared would hold without immediate attention. He assumed distance did not require examination. He believed space could exist without consequence. Eris did not judge him for that belief. She understood it. She had accommodated it for months. Still, watching him accept her absence so easily clarified what she had sensed all along. Presence mattered more than promise, and his presence had already been divided. Season did not see her request as loss. He framed it as pause. He assumed clarity would return when conditions improved. He did not ask what she needed beyond time. He did not ask what had shifted inside her. He trusted that she would return when ready. Eris saw how differently they approached uncertainty. She sought understanding. He sought continuity. Neither was wrong, but the gap between them widened in that moment. Season's acceptance was respectful. It was calm. It was sincere, and it confirmed that she had already been carrying their connection alone. Clarity arrived after the conversation ended, not during it, not in the calm exchange of words. After, in the quiet that followed, Eris walked home alone. The streets felt familiar. Her pace stayed steady. Nothing around her had changed. Yet something inside her settled with certainty. She replayed the conversation in her mind, not the words, the response. Season had listened. He had agreed. He had adapted. And then he had moved on. That was the truth. Not cruelty, not indifference, something more precise. He believed love endured without constant tending. He believed connection waited. Eris understood then that she had been bridging the distance for a long time, adjusting, interpreting, filling silence with patience, protecting what remained by asking less of him. She realized she had already stepped back emotionally before asking for space aloud. The request had only made the distance visible. This was not a realization that broke her. It steadied her. She saw clearly how often she had reduced her needs to match his capacity, how she had measured her expectations against his availability, how she had protected him from discomfort while absorbing it herself. The truth was simple. He cared, but care without presence did not sustain what they had built. Eris did not feel anger. She felt understanding, and with it, resolve. She accepted that if she stayed, she would continue adjusting, waiting, explaining absence to herself. She would continue being patient while hoping awareness arrived on its own. She did not want that future. This understanding did not make Season wrong. It made their paths misaligned. She thought about the life she wanted, a life where attention arrived freely, where emotional availability did not require negotiation, where stability did not depend on timing. The truth settled quietly but firmly. Leaving was not abandonment. It was alignment. She had not lost him in that moment. She had found herself. That understanding gave her peace she had not felt in months. Peace rooted in honesty rather than hope. She did not need confrontation to validate it. The clarity stood on its own. Eris made the decision alone, not out of secrecy, out of clarity. She did not rush it. She sat with the truth the way she had learned to sit with everything else. Calm, observant, honest with herself. She thought about telling Keeson before she left. The words formed easily now. The timing did not. She imagined the shift it would cause, the way responsibility would enter the room immediately, how his focus would snap into place not from readiness but from duty. She knew him well enough to see it clearly. That was not the future she wanted for herself or her child. Eris believed a child deserved presence rooted in intention, not reaction. She believed love should arrive because it was chosen, not because circumstances demanded it. If she spoke now, the conversation would no longer be about space or alignment. It would become about obligation, about logistics, about next steps shaped by pressure rather than understanding. She refused that framing. This was not punishment. It was protection. She trusted Season's character. She did not doubt he would respond with responsibility. That was exactly why she waited. Responsibility without emotional availability felt incomplete. Eris knew what she could carry. She also knew what she did not want to carry. She did not want to manage someone else's guilt or urgency while learning how to become a mother. She chose to leave with honesty intact, even if unspoken. Her departure was quiet. No declarations, no demands, no final explanations meant to force closure. She closed the door gently behind her. She told him she needed time away. He accepted. She did not correct his assumptions. She did not expand the conversation. The truth remained with her. Leaving without revealing the pregnancy did not feel like withholding. It felt like guarding something fragile until it could be held without strain. She did not know when she would speak. Only that she would do so when the truth could arrive with dignity rather than disruption. As she stepped into her new life, Eris felt steady, not because the choice was easy, because it aligned with who she was. Eris did not leave with anger in her chest. She did not rewrite the past to justify her choice. She carried clarity instead. She refused to frame Season as careless or unkind. That story would have been easier to tell. It would have simplified the leaving. It would have given her something sharp to hold on to. But it would not have been true. Easton had not misled her. He had not made promises he broke. He had shown her who he was through action, through pacing, through priority, through the way his life filled every available margin. Eris respected that truth. She understood that two people could care deeply and still move out of alignment. She understood that love did not fail only through harm. Sometimes it shifted through neglect that was never intended. She did not speak badly of him to friends. She did not dramatize the separation. When asked, she kept her answers brief and honest. We needed different things. That was enough. Clarity allowed her to move forward without resentment. She did not feel owed an explanation beyond what she already understood. She did not seek validation for leaving. Her certainty came from within. She focused on what lay ahead rather than what she stepped away from. As she planned her departure, she moved with care. She closed chapters without noise. She packed her life without urgency. Each choice reflected intention rather than escape. She felt grief, yes. Loss did not disappear simply because clarity arrived. But grief did not rule her. It walked beside her quietly, acknowledged and unarmed. Eris held space for complexity. She allowed herself to feel love without longing. She allowed herself to remember without returning. This balance preserved her dignity. She did not need Easton to understand her choice immediately. She did not need him to agree. She needed only to trust herself. That trust carried her forward. Leaving without accusation protected her peace. It kept the past intact without letting it dictate the future. It allowed her to step into the next chapter without bitterness weighing her down. Self-respect did not require permission. It required honesty. And honesty did not always demand explanation. Starting over did not look dramatic for Eris. There was no grand exit, no sharp break meant to signal strength. She moved with intention, choosing stability over spectacle. She selected a place that felt manageable, familiar streets, a pace that allowed breathing room, somewhere routines could form without friction. She wanted a life shaped by predictability, not reaction. Her days became structured quickly. Morning walks, work hours that ended on time, evenings reserved for rest. She built a rhythm that respected her body and her mind. Eris did not frame this shift as loss. She framed it as alignment. She had learned how much energy it took to keep adjusting to someone else's pace. Now she reclaimed that energy and directed it inward. She prepared for motherhood quietly. Appointments attended alone. Decisions made without consultation. Each choice grounded her further. She trusted herself. She trusted the clarity that guided her forward. There were moments of loneliness. She did not deny them. But loneliness did not undo her certainty. It reminded her why peace mattered. Eris set boundaries early. She limited noise. She reduced unnecessary obligations. She focused on building a home defined by calm. She did not rush to fill space with distraction. She allowed silence to remain gentle. She believed stillness taught resilience. Starting over required patience. She accepted that progress arrived through small, repeated actions. She measured success by steadiness rather than speed. She organized her life to support consistency. Same routes, same meals, same bedtime. Structure gave her confidence. It reminded her she could create stability through choice. Eris did not dwell on what she left behind. Reflection happened when needed, not constantly. She did not use the past as reference for every decision. She trusted the present. She surrounded herself with people who respected her boundaries. Friends who did not ask invasive questions. Support offered without judgment. That respect mattered. As months passed, her life settled into something solid. Not perfect, not effortless, but dependable. Starting over was not about forgetting. It was about building without strain, about shaping a life where expectations matched capacity. She knew challenges would come. She did not fear them. She believed preparation mattered more than prediction. This was the foundation she chose, one rooted in calm, one built deliberately. Luca entered the world without chaos. No rushed calls, no crowded waiting rooms, no urgency layered over fear. Eris planned his arrival the same way she planned her days, with care and steadiness. She chose calm deliberately. She prepared early. She asked questions. She listened. She selected what felt right rather than what looked impressive. Every decision centered on safety and peace. When labor began, she stayed grounded. She focused on breath, on rhythm, on the moment in front of her. She trusted her body and the preparation behind it. There was no panic in the room, only quiet instruction and presence. Eris welcomed Luca with clarity rather than overwhelm. She held him close and allowed the moment to unfold without rushing it forward. Joy arrived softly. It did not shout. It settled. She looked at his face and felt certainty deepen. This was a beginning shaped by intention. She had chosen this path knowing the responsibility it carried. That knowledge gave her strength. Eris named him Luca with care, a name chosen for balance. Simple, steady, easy to carry. She wanted him to grow into himself without weight attached. The early days were gentle. She established routines immediately. Feeding times, sleep patterns, simple rituals that created predictability. She believed consistency gave children security before words ever could. Eris did not feel deprived during this time. She felt focused. Her world narrowed in the best way. Attention centered on what mattered. She allowed herself to rest without guilt. She did not wait for help that never came. She built systems that supported her independence. She accepted assistance when offered respectfully. She declined what felt intrusive. Luca responded to the calm around him. He slept easily. He settled quickly. He sensed steadiness before he could understand it. Eris observed these details with quiet confidence. She knew peace was not accidental. It was cultivated. She did not compare her experience to others. She did not measure success by difficulty. She believed motherhood did not need to feel chaotic to be real. The absence of tension did not diminish the depth of her love. It strengthened it. Luca's birth marked a clear beginning, one shaped by choice rather than reaction, one rooted in care rather than urgency. Eris carried that intention forward. She understood that how a child enters the world sets tone, not destiny. But tone mattered. She had given him a beginning defined by calm. That mattered to her. Eris parented with structure before emotion, not because she felt less, but because she understood how children learned safety first. Feelings found space when routines held firm. She built Luca's days around predictability. Mornings began the same way. Meals followed familiar patterns. Evenings slowed gently toward rest. These rhythms became anchors, especially during moments of uncertainty. She believed stability did not limit growth. It supported it. Eris paid attention to environment. She kept their home uncluttered, not sterile, intentional. Every object served a purpose. Calm colors, soft light, spaces that invited rest rather than stimulation. She limited noise. Screens stayed controlled. Voices stayed measured. She believed children absorbed more from tone than words. Discipline arrived through guidance, not fear. When Luca tested boundaries, she responded with consistency. The rules stayed the same. Her voice stayed steady. He learned quickly that expectations did not shift with mood. This consistency gave Luca confidence. He explored freely because he trusted the limits. He learned self-regulation early because the world around him remained reliable. Eris valued presence over explanation. She did not narrate every decision. She showed Luca what stability looked like through action, through returning when promised, through keeping routines intact even when tired. She understood how easy it was to overcompensate, to fill absence with indulgence. She avoided that trap. She did not attempt to replace what Luca did not have with excess. She believed children sensed imbalance even without language. Eris encouraged curiosity within structure. Luca asked questions. She answered honestly, but briefly. She did not burden him with information beyond his years. She believed children deserved clarity without complexity. She chose schools carefully, environments that valued emotional development alongside learning, teachers who respected routine, spaces where children felt seen without pressure. Eris stayed involved without hovering. She trusted the systems she built. She allowed Luca independence within safe boundaries. That trust reinforced his confidence. She did not rush milestones. She let development unfold at its own pace. She measured progress by security rather than speed. Eris understood that stability required consistency from her as well. She maintained her routines even when exhausted. She honored commitments she made to Luca. She modeled reliability. These choices shaped Luca's sense of the world. He learned early that days followed patterns, that needs were met without urgency, that calm did not require explanation. Parenting rooted in stability did not mean perfection. It meant showing up the same way again and again. Aris believed that was enough. Aris chose her words with care long before Luca could understand them. She believed language shaped reality, especially for children. She refused to let resentment become part of Luca's foundation. When questions came, she answered simply. She did not invent stories. She did not erase truth. She offered what fit his age and emotional space. "Your father lives his own life," she said, when Luca asked early on. "He mattered to me once. That's part of your story." There was no edge in her voice. No pause heavy with implication, just calm delivery. She did not speak often about Season, not out of avoidance, out of intention. She believed absence did not need constant explanation. What mattered was the life Luca lived now. When Luca noticed families that looked different from theirs, Aris did not rush to correct the observation. She acknowledged it. "Families take many shapes," she said. "What matters is care." She never framed Season as a failure. She never framed herself as wronged. She did not position Luca between two opposing truths. She protected him from choosing sides he did not need. Aris understood how easily bitterness slipped into tone, how frustration hid inside sighs and pauses. She guarded against that. She practiced neutrality until it became natural. She believed Luca did not need her pain to understand his origin. He needed stability. He needed honesty delivered without weight. As Luca grew older, his questions evolved. They became more specific, more thoughtful. Aris adjusted her responses accordingly. "He didn't know about you then," she said when Luca asked once. "And people make choices based on what they understand at the time." She did not soften reality. She contextualized it. Aris refused to build Luca's identity around absence. She focused on presence, on the people who showed up, on the life they shared. She trusted that truth revealed gradually carried more strength than truth delivered all at once. Her restraint was not denial. It was respect for Luca's emotional capacity, for Season's humanity, for her own peace. By choosing calm language, Aris kept bitterness from taking root. She did not need to rewrite the past to justify her present. She let facts stand without commentary. This approach required discipline, especially during moments when old feelings surfaced. She processed those privately. She did not place them in Luca's hands. Aris believed children deserved clean emotional space, free from unresolved adult conflict, so she spoke of Luca's father with balance, without anger, without praise meant to compensate, just truth, scaled to fit understanding. That choice protected Luca more than silence ever could. Luca grew within structure, and that structure gave him confidence long before he understood why. He moved through his days with ease. He trusted what came next. That trust shaped how he saw the world. He noticed details others missed, changes in tone, shifts in routine, not because he felt unsafe, but because calm allowed observation. Children raised in steadiness learned to pay attention without fear. Luca asked thoughtful questions, not anxious ones, curious ones. He wanted to understand how things worked, not why they felt uncertain. Aris welcomed that curiosity. She answered without hurry. She never dismissed his questions. She also never overwhelmed him. He learned early how to sit with silence without discomfort. Quiet moments did not unsettle him. He could play alone. He could wait. He could rest without distraction. These skills came from repetition, not instruction. Luca trusted adults because his primary caregiver stayed consistent. Promises were kept. Schedules held. When change came, it was explained calmly. That reliability built emotional security. He showed empathy easily. When others felt upset, he noticed. He responded with concern rather than confusion. Emotional awareness grew naturally in an environment free from tension. Luca did not feel deprived. He did not ask for what he did not know. His world felt complete because it was stable. He measured safety by routine, not explanation. Aris watched this development with quiet pride. She did not attribute it to luck. She recognized the outcome of deliberate choices made daily. Choices to show up the same way. Choices to prioritize presence. As Luca grew, he learned to trust himself. He made decisions confidently. He explored within boundaries. He accepted guidance without resistance. He did not feel the need to rush growing up. He did not carry adult concerns prematurely. He lived fully in each stage of childhood. When others commented on his calm nature, Aris smiled gently. She understood the source. Peace, when offered consistently, shapes temperament. Luca's security did not mean he lacked emotion. He felt deeply, but emotions moved through him without overwhelming him. He recovered quickly. He trusted resolution. This balance prepared him for future questions, for deeper truths that would come with time. Aris knew he would face them with resilience. Children do not require constant explanation to feel whole. They require consistency. Luca received that gift daily, through routine, through honesty scaled to fit understanding, through a life built on dependability rather than reaction. The invitation came on an ordinary afternoon. Aris was sorting through mail at the kitchen counter, moving at the same steady pace she kept for most things. Luca sat nearby, focused on a small puzzle, humming softly to himself. The house felt settled, predictable, safe. Her phone buzzed. Noelle's name lit the screen. They spoke often. Short check-ins, updates shared without urgency. Noelle respected Aris's boundaries. She never pushed for stories Aris did not offer. Their bond stayed intact because of that respect. "I wanted to ask you something," Noelle said, her tone light but intentional. "My company is hosting a work event next month. It's a celebration. I'd like you to come." Aris paused, not because of concern, but because the request surprised her. Noelle rarely mixed family with work. She kept those worlds separate. "What kind of event?" Aris asked. "Neutral. A formal one," Noelle replied. "Dinner, speeches, the usual. I'll be busy most of the night, but I want you there." Aris considered it briefly. There was no rush in her decision-making. She checked her calendar mentally. Nothing conflicted. Luca's schedule allowed flexibility. It felt manageable. "Okay," she said. "We can come." Noelle sounded relieved. "Good. I'll send the details." They ended the call without further explanation. Aris returned to the counter. She did not wonder who Noelle worked for. She did not ask about the guest list. She did not imagine outcomes. The invitation registered as a family gesture, nothing more. Aris trusted the life she had built. She did not assume the past waited around corners. She had grown comfortable believing distance held. She watched Luca fit the final puzzle piece into place and smile with quiet satisfaction. That steadiness anchored her. The event felt like a simple outing, a chance to support her sister, an evening outside routine but not outside control. She did not sense risk. She did not feel anticipation. She felt neutral. Noelle did not hint at importance. She did not build suspense. She treated the invitation as ordinary. That mattered to Aris. Ordinary meant safe. Aris believed life rarely revisited closed chapters without warning. She believed time softened intersections. She accepted the invitation with trust rather than caution. In that moment, nothing stirred beneath the surface. Nothing hinted at collision. It was just an invitation. Aris did not follow the invitation with questions. That absence of curiosity came from confidence, not avoidance. She had learned how to protect her peace by limiting unnecessary speculation. She did not ask Noelle where the event would be held. She did not ask who would attend. She did not search online or replay possibilities. Her mind stayed where her feet were. Agreeing felt simple. In the years since starting over, Aris had trained herself to respond to invitations without scanning for hidden meaning. She no longer lived on alert. She trusted the structure of her life to hold, even when something unfamiliar entered it. Curiosity, she knew, could open doors she had intentionally closed. So she treated the event as it was presented, a celebration, a chance to show up for her sister, one evening outside routine that did not require rehearsal. She told herself this mattered. Normalcy mattered. Living as if the past no longer dictated choices mattered. Aris had spent enough time shrinking her world to avoid collision. She had earned the right to step into rooms without fear. She reminded herself that years had passed, that lives diverged, that intersections did not happen easily when people moved in different orbits. She did not assume history would repeat itself simply because time allowed it. When Noelle sent the event details later, Aris glanced at them briefly. Formal attire, evening start, a venue in the city. Nothing alarming. She saved the date and moved on. Luca asked about the event that evening while they cleared dishes together. "We're going to see Aunt Noelle work," Eris said, keeping her tone light. "It's a special night for her." "Will there be food?" he asked, practical as always. "Yes," she smiled. "And music." That was enough for him. Eris appreciated that simplicity. Children did not complicate what adults often did. They accepted information as given, without layering it with fear. She mirrored that approach. Agreeing without curiosity was a choice, one shaped by trust in herself, trust in her boundaries, trust that she could handle whatever came without unraveling. She did not avoid thought. She redirected it. She chose not to borrow concern from a future that had not arrived. In doing so, she preserved ease. The decision to attend did not feel heavy. It did not feel charged. It felt ordinary. That ordinariness gave her confidence. It allowed her to remain present in the days leading up to the event. She did not realize that sometimes the most impactful moments arrive when curiosity stays quiet. Preparation unfolded without urgency. Eris treated the event like any other commitment that deserved care, not overthinking. She planned early so nothing felt rushed. She chose attire with intention. Nothing meant to impress. Nothing meant to disappear. Clean lines, comfortable fit, clothes that allowed her to move freely and remain herself. She valued ease over statement. Luca's outfit mattered just as much. She picked something neat and simple, something that let him feel comfortable in a room full of adults. He cared less about how he looked, and more about whether he could sit, stand, and explore without restriction. She honored that. In the days leading up to the event, Eris adjusted routines slightly so the evening would not feel disruptive. Earlier meals, a lighter schedule. She believed preparation reduced stress more than reassurance ever could. She explained the evening to Luca in practical terms. "We'll be out later than usual. There will be people talking. You'll stay close to me." He nodded. That was enough. Eris arranged transportation ahead of time. She disliked last-minute decisions. Control over logistics gave her calm. It allowed her to focus on being present rather than reactive. She checked details once. Time, location. That was it. She did not revisit them repeatedly. She trusted her planning. The night before the event, she laid everything out. Shoes by the door. Luca's jacket folded neatly. Small preparations that signaled readiness. She slept well. On the day itself, Eris moved through a routine with the same steadiness Luca knew. Breakfast, school drop-off, work hours completed without distraction. She did not carry anticipation into the day. She treated it like any other. In the afternoon, she picked Luca up early. They went home together. The pace stayed gentle. As evening approached, she noticed a faint tension beneath the surface. Not fear, awareness. The kind that arrives when something unfamiliar approaches, even without reason. She did not feed it. She acknowledged it and continued. Getting ready felt calm. Luca watched her with interest as she dressed. "You look nice," he said, sincere. "Thank you," she replied, meeting his eyes. That exchange mattered more than any compliment she might receive later. When they stepped out, Eris took a slow breath, not to steady nerves, to mark transition. Routine to occasion, preparation had done its work. She felt capable, grounded, ready for an evening that still felt ordinary. She did not know what waited ahead. She did not need to. Luca approached the evening with curiosity, not hesitation. To him, the event was simple. A place with people, food, music, a chance to stay close to his mother while observing something new. Eris valued that ease. She believed children took cues from adults. Calm invited calm. She kept her tone steady as they arrived, guiding him with quiet instruction. "Stay with me," she said softly. "If you need anything, tell me." He nodded, slipping his hand into hers without being asked. The venue felt large to Luca, but not overwhelming. He noticed details first. The lights, the echo of voices, the polished floor beneath his shoes. He stayed close, absorbing without anxiety. Eris paid attention to him more than the room. She watched his posture, his pace, his comfort level. She adjusted when needed. They moved together easily. Luca greeted Noelle warmly when they found her. He liked her. She knelt to his level and spoke directly to him, not over him. That mattered. He relaxed further. As the evening progressed, Luca observed people carefully. He noticed who spoke loudly and who listened. He noticed who smiled easily and who seemed distracted. These observations came without judgment, just awareness. Eris gave him freedom within boundaries. He could stand beside her or sit when tired. He could ask questions quietly. She answered briefly, keeping explanations simple. He did not feel out of place. Eris had prepared him well. He understood expectations. He trusted her presence. At one point, he tugged her hand gently. "There are a lot of people," he said, matter of fact. "Yes," she replied. "We'll take breaks." They stepped aside briefly. She crouched to his level. He leaned into her shoulder. That contact grounded both of them. Luca did not feel bored. He found interest in watching patterns. He asked about things he did not recognize. Eris responded without turning the evening into a lesson. She allowed him to experience the event rather than explain it away. Children raised in stability carry that steadiness into unfamiliar spaces. Luca showed that clearly. He adapted without losing himself. He stayed observant without becoming guarded. Eris felt quiet pride, not in how he behaved, but in how secure he felt. As they moved deeper into the evening, Luca remained composed. He did not cling. He did not wander. He trusted the environment because his anchor stayed firm. Eris knew his presence mattered to what came next, even if she did not yet understand why. Luca attended without strain, without fear, without needing reassurance beyond what had already been given through years of consistency. That steadiness would soon matter more than either of them knew. The feeling arrived without cause. Eris noticed it as they stood near the edge of the room, watching guests circulate with practiced ease. Conversations blended together. Laughter surfaced, then faded. Everything appeared orderly. Nothing demanded attention. Yet something shifted inside her. It was not fear. It was awareness. A quiet alertness she had learned to respect without feeding. The kind that surfaced when a situation carried more weight than it showed. She did not search for explanation. She did not scan faces for familiarity. She remained where she was, present with Luca, grounded in the moment. Still, the sensation lingered. Her shoulders tightened slightly. Her breath slowed. She adjusted her stance without thinking, placing Luca closer to her side. He noticed the change, but did not question it. He leaned in naturally, trusting the movement. Eris told herself it was nothing. Large gatherings often carried energy that shifted unpredictably. New environments required adjustment. She had felt this before. It always passed. She focused on small details to remain centered. Luca's hand warm in hers. The steady rhythm of his breathing. The way his attention moved calmly across the room. She reminded herself why they were there. To support Noelle. To share an evening together. Nothing more. Yet the sense of anticipation did not fade. It hovered quietly, neither urgent nor loud, just present. Eris did not resist it. She acknowledged it without interpretation. She believed intuition worked best when observed rather than questioned. She noticed how often people glanced toward the stage, how staff moved with purpose, how conversations paused, then resumed with expectation. She did not connect these observations to her own unease. She let them exist separately. Luca tilted his head, watching the room with interest. "Something's going to happen," he said casually, not with excitement but with certainty. Eris smiled softly. "There are speeches," she replied. "That's all." He accepted the answer easily. Children often sensed momentum without attaching meaning. His comment did not heighten her concern. It simply mirrored the atmosphere. Eris checked the time briefly. Still early. Plenty of space before anything significant. She thought about how often life signaled change subtly, through shifts in mood, through quiet tension without name. She had learned not to ignore those signals, but also not to dramatize them. She stayed where she was. She did not leave. She did not brace for impact. She remained steady. The unease did not warn her of danger. It hinted at connection, at alignment approaching without announcement. She did not know it yet, but threads long set aside were drawing closer. Life reconnects paths when least expected. Not through force, through timing. The room continued to hum around them, unaware that the next moment would alter everything. The room settled into a different rhythm as the evening progressed. Conversations softened, then tightened again, moving in waves. Staff adjusted lighting slightly. Chairs aligned more deliberately toward the stage. Glasses were set down with intention rather than habit. Eris noticed the shift without naming it. The air felt focused now, expectant, not loud, but attentive. People leaned closer to one another, voices lowered, as if the room itself had decided to listen. She stood with Luca near the side, exactly where she preferred to be. Close enough to observe, far enough to remain unnoticed. She had learned how to exist comfortably at the edges of moments that belonged to others. Luca followed the change instinctively. He stopped fidgeting. His posture straightened. He looked around with interest rather than distraction. "Is something starting?" he asked. "Yes," Eris replied quietly. "Soon." The stage lights brightened by a fraction. Screens behind the podium displayed muted visuals. Names scrolled past, unfamiliar to Eris, but greeted with nods and quiet acknowledgement by those around her. This was a professional room. Controlled, polished, built on timing and reputation. Eris felt separate from it, yet fully present within it. She thought briefly of Noelle, likely preparing backstage, moving through her role with confidence. Eris felt proud of her sister without needing proximity. The atmosphere carried weight without pressure. A celebration designed to affirm success, order, progress. Everything appeared measured, intentional. Eris adjusted Luca's jacket collar gently, a small gesture that anchored her. He leaned into her touch, comfortable and calm. She did not feel out of place. She felt observant. The crowd's attention pulled forward as the host returned to the microphone. Applause rose, then fell into silence. Names were mentioned, achievements referenced. Each moment layered importance without urgency. Eris listened without investment. She had attended events like this before. She understood how they moved, how they built toward reveal. What she did not understand was why her earlier unease had not faded. She scanned the room once, slowly, not searching for anyone specific, just orienting herself. Faces blurred together. Nothing familiar surfaced. Still, something held her attention inward. Luca shifted his weight, then stilled again. "A lot of people are watching," he said softly. "Yes," Eris agreed. "That's how these things work." She rested a hand on his shoulder. He stayed close. The room reached a pause, the kind that signals arrival. Eris did not know who would step onto the stage next. She did not anticipate connection. She simply waited, grounded, unaware that the next moment would collapse years of distance into a single glance. The host spoke his name with practiced confidence, the kind used for people whose presence carried expectation. Applause followed immediately. Strong, coordinated, respectful. Season Virex stepped onto the stage. He moved with certainty shaped over years. Not hurried, not tentative. A man accustomed to attention without depending on it. His suit fit with ease. His posture reflected discipline rather than display. Eris felt the moment before she understood it. Her body reacted first, a tightening at her center, a pause in breath. She did not look away. She could not. Season acknowledged the room with a small nod. He waited for the applause to settle. He did not rush the silence. He understood how to hold it. This was not the man she had known during quiet dinners and unguarded evenings. This version carried authority earned through repetition and demand. His voice, when he spoke, carried calm control. Each word landed cleanly, measured, intentional. The crowd listened closely. Eris absorbed the contrast without judgment. She recognized him without longing, without regret. Recognition did not require return. Luca watched the stage intently. He studied Season the way children studied unfamiliar figures who commanded attention. With interest, not awe. "He talks like he knows what he's doing," Luca said quietly. "Yes," Eris replied. "He does." She kept her voice even. She did not shift her stance. She did not hide. Season spoke about progress, about responsibility, about growth built through patience and focus. His words reflected the life he had chosen, the path he had walked without pause. Eris listened, not to the speech, but to the distance it represented. This was the version shaped by years she had not shared, years she had chosen not to interrupt. She felt no bitterness, only clarity. Season looked outward as he spoke, over the room, across faces. He did not scan for familiarity. He had no reason to. The space between past and present remained intact for one more breath. Eris rested her hand lightly on Luca's shoulder. A grounding touch, a reminder of what mattered now. The room remained focused on the stage, and then Season's gaze shifted. Season's gaze moved across the room the way it always did, steady and controlled. He did not rush it. He did not search. He allowed his eyes to rest where they landed. Then they stopped. Eris felt it before she named it. The pause, the hesitation, the brief fracture in his rhythm. Their eyes met. Recognition did not arrive as shock. It arrived as memory resurfacing without warning, a quiet recalibration behind his expression. His speech continued, but the cadence shifted slightly, almost imperceptibly. Eris did not flinch. She did not look away. She met his gaze with the same calm she had carried for years. No challenge, no greeting, just acknowledgement. For a moment, the distance between them compressed, not through emotion but through shared history resurfacing all at once. Conversations remembered. Choices understood. Time accounted for. Season adjusted his stance. A small movement. A grounding one. He finished the sentence he had been delivering, then paused, letting the room breathe. Eris noticed how carefully he returned to his composure, how discipline guided him back to the present without erasing what had surfaced. She felt no rush of feeling, no pull backward, only awareness. Luca sensed the shift. He followed her gaze, then looked back at her face, reading without question. "You know him," he said quietly. Not a question, an observation. "Yes," Eris replied, just as quietly. She did not explain further. She did not need to. Season continued speaking, but his attention returned to the room with effort now. He did not look back again. Not yet. Eris understood the weight of that moment. Recognition had occurred, without announcement, without reaction, without spectacle. They had seen each other, fully, as they were now. The past did not rush in. It stood still, waiting. Eris felt steady. She did not brace. She did not retreat. She remained where she was, grounded in the life she had built. Recognition did not demand response. It asked for awareness, and awareness had arrived. Season's eyes returned to the room as he continued, but something had shifted. His focus no longer moved with the same ease. He anchored himself to the cadence of his words, yet his attention carried. A faint drag, as if pulled by a thought he had not planned to entertain. Then he saw Luca. It was not immediate, not dramatic. His gaze passed over the crowd once more, then slowed near the edge where Eris stood. He registered the child beside her as part of the scene at first. A small figure, neat, still, and then his eyes returned. Season paused for half a beat. Not long enough for the audience to notice, long enough for him to register detail. Height, posture, the way the child stood without fidgeting, watching the stage with calm interest. Luca looked back without hesitation. Children often did. He held Season's gaze briefly, curious rather than impressed. Season's throat tightened slightly. He continued speaking, but the words required more intention now. He adjusted his grip on the lectern, a grounding habit. He told himself not to assume, not to jump ahead. He reminded himself of numbers, of years, of probability, of the many ways resemblance could mislead. Yet his attention returned again. Luca shifted his weight, leaning subtly toward Eris. The movement was instinctive, protective, familiar. Season noticed that too. He watched the way Eris's hand rested on the boy's shoulder, the way the child accepted the touch without looking away. That quiet trust unsettled him more than any similarity might have. His voice remained even. The audience stayed engaged. No one sensed the recalculation happening behind his eyes. Season felt something press against memory, a sense of alignment that refused to stay abstract. He did not label it. He did not allow it shape yet. He held it at distance. Eris noticed his attention settle and withdraw again. She recognized restraint when she saw it. She did not move. She did not shield Luca. She trusted the moment to remain contained. Luca tilted his head slightly, studying Season as if noting a pattern. Then he returned his focus to the room, satisfied. Season finished his point and moved to the next. Applause followed a moment later. He nodded in acknowledgement, but his eyes found the edge of the room once more, as if confirming what he had already seen. Something had entered his awareness. It did not demand words. It asked for patience. Season tried to anchor himself in the present. He shifted his weight slightly, steadying his breath, continuing his remarks with precision. Yet, his attention no longer rested where it should. His mind returned to the child. He noticed it in fragments at first. The set of Luca's shoulders, the straightness of his posture, the way he stood still without stiffness, alert without tension. These were details learned over time, not inherited in a single glance. Then came the face. It was not a mirror. It was subtler than that. The curve of the mouth when Luca pressed his lips together, the calm focus in his eyes, the way his brow tightened briefly when listening closely. Season felt the recognition settle deeper. He remembered old photographs of himself at that age. The same quiet watchfulness, the same stillness that came from thinking rather than reacting. He had carried that trait before the world demanded performance. The resemblance did not shout. It did not announce itself as proof. It arrived as familiarity without source. Season forced his attention back to the room. He finished his sentence cleanly. Applause followed. The audience remained unaware. Inside, something shifted into place. He recalculated time without panic. Years aligned in his mind with uncomfortable precision. He did not accuse Ares of anything. He did not rush toward certainty. He respected restraint too much for that. Yet the alignment would not release him. He glanced again, careful now. Luca stood exactly where he had before, hand resting lightly against Ares's side. The way she positioned herself around him was instinctive, protective without possession. Season felt a slow heaviness build in his chest. Not fear, responsibility awakening before invitation. He told himself resemblance alone meant nothing. Children borrowed features from many places. Memory colored perception, but instinct persisted. This was not about appearance alone. It was about recognition beyond logic, about something that fit too easily once seen. Season finished speaking. The room rose in applause. He stepped back from the lectern, nodding, smiling politely. As he moved toward the side of the stage, his gaze returned to Ares one final time. Not searching, confirming. She met his eyes without challenge, without denial. The resemblance remained between them, unspoken, undeniable, waiting. The understanding did not arrive as a thought. It arrived as weight. Season felt it settle as he stepped away from the stage, applause still echoing behind him. His body moved on instinct, trained to perform transitions smoothly. Smile, nod, acknowledge, exit. Inside, everything slowed. He did not rush toward Ares. He did not seek confirmation. He did not allow the moment to fracture into confrontation. The truth did not require noise. He replayed fragments instead. Timelines, distance, her request for space years ago, the ease with which she left, the silence that followed, the child standing beside her now, old enough to speak, to observe, to resemble. Absence filled the gaps. Season understood something with clarity that surprised him. If the child was his, it was not because Ares had taken something from him. It was because he had not been there to receive it. The realization carried no accusation, only consequence. Across the room, Ares remained still. She did not signal him. She did not turn away. She allowed the moment to exist without shaping it. That restraint told him more than words could have. She had not come seeking anything. Luca leaned slightly into her side again, comfortable, unaware of the shift occurring around him. He trusted the ground beneath his feet because it had always been steady. Season noticed that too. The truth stood between them now, fully formed, without being spoken. It did not demand immediate action. It demanded accountability, not explanation, not defense, just responsibility. He understood that whatever came next would not be decided tonight. It would unfold through choices, through patience, through presence earned rather than assumed. And this is where the story turns. If you want to see how accountability unfolds without blame, stay with us. This moment does not lead to confrontation. It leads to consequence, growth, and hard choices made quietly. If you value stories about responsibility, dignity, and love shaped by action, keep watching Love Tales with Mr. Easton. The next chapter reveals how truth moves forward when no one raises their voice. Season did not approach Ares immediately. He waited until the room loosened its grip on formality, until conversations resumed in smaller circles, until attention drifted back to celebration and away from the stage. He understood timing. Tonight demanded restraint before resolution. Eris felt his presence before she saw him, not through instinct alone, but through awareness sharpened by years of paying attention. She turned slightly, enough to acknowledge him without inviting a scene. "May we speak?" Season asked quietly. His tone carried respect. No authority, no urgency, just request. Eris nodded once. Yes. She did not look to Noelle. She did not adjust Luca's position. She trusted the environment she had built around them. They moved to a quieter corner near the edge of the venue. Still visible, still appropriate. Distance maintained without secrecy. Luca stayed close, occupied with something small in his hands. Eris knelt briefly, meeting his eyes. "Stay right here," she said. "I'll be right beside you." He nodded, settled, secure. Season noticed that too. How little explanation Luca required. How trust rested easily. They stood across from each other, not close enough to touch, not far enough to feel detached. The space between them felt deliberate. Neither rushed to speak. Season broke the silence first, not with a question, but with acknowledgement. "I didn't expect to see you here." "I didn't expect to be," Eris replied evenly. There was no edge in her voice, no defensiveness. Just truth. Season nodded slowly. He did not apologize yet. He did not explain. He understood some moments required listening before language. "I won't keep you long," he said. "I just need to ask something." Eris met his gaze. She did not tense. She had anticipated this moment long before it arrived. Not tonight. Years ago. In quiet rooms where she weighed silence against truth. She waited. Season glanced once toward Luca, then back to her face. His expression remained composed, but something deeper moved beneath it. Careful. Measured. "This isn't a demand," he said. "And it's not an accusation." She appreciated that clarity. "I need to know," he continued, voice low enough to stay private, "before I decide what comes next." The words settled between them. Eris understood the gravity without flinching. She had prepared herself for many reactions over the years. This was the one she respected most. A question asked with care. She nodded once, signaling readiness, not permission. Readiness. Season drew a slow breath. He did not look away. He did not fill the space with preamble. He asked. Season did not rush the question. He measured the space around it, as if careless phrasing could fracture something already fragile. He lowered his voice further, not to hide, but to honor the moment. "Is Luca my son?" He did not add qualifiers. He did not soften the words with humor or distance. He did not frame it as suspicion. He framed it as possibility. The question landed without force, yet it carried years inside it. Eris did not react immediately. She did not inhale sharply. She did not avert her eyes. She held his gaze, steady and open, the way she had learned to hold truth without fear. "Yes," she said. One word. No explanation, no defense. Season felt the answer move through him before he could respond. His body registered it first. A tightening at the chest, a warmth behind the eyes, a subtle imbalance that forced him to shift his stance. He nodded once, slowly, as if acknowledging a fact rather than reacting to it. He did not step back. He did not step forward. "Thank you," he said quietly. Eris noticed that too. He had thanked her for honesty rather than questioned timing. That mattered. She did not elaborate. She did not offer context. She trusted the answer to stand on its own. She believed truth carried its own weight without assistance. Season did not ask why she waited. He did not ask how long she had known. He did not ask what she expected now. Those questions belonged later. Right now, he focused on receiving what he had asked for. He looked toward Luca again, this time without doubt. Without calculation. The child stood where he had been moments before, calm, observant, anchored to Eris without clinging. Season's throat tightened. He swallowed, grounding himself. "I won't ask anything else tonight," he said. "I don't want to overwhelm him, or you." Eris nodded. "That's wise." Her response carried no judgment, only agreement. Season exhaled slowly. He understood that asking carefully also meant stopping carefully. He had opened a door that required patience rather than momentum. He met her eyes again. "I appreciate you answering me plainly." "That's how I live," she replied. He believed her. The question had been asked. The truth had been given. Nothing more needed to be said in this moment. Sometimes the most life-altering conversations moved quietly, without witnesses, without raised voices, without demand. This was one of them. Eris did not feel relief after answering. She felt alignment. She had lived with the truth long enough to know how it sat inside her. Saying it out loud did not change its shape. It simply placed it where it belonged. She watched Season absorb the answer without interruption, without argument, without defense. That restraint mattered to her more than any apology could have. "I didn't plan to tell you like this," she said calmly. "Not as an excuse, as context, but I won't lie when asked." Season nodded again. He did not push. He did not ask her to explain herself. He accepted her boundary. Eris appreciated that he did not demand justification. She had never hidden the truth to control outcome. She had protected timing to protect stability. She spoke with clarity rather than detail. "I knew before I left," she said. "I chose not to speak then." She let the statement stand. She did not expand on fear or reasoning. Those belonged to her. He would understand in time, or he would not. Either way, she would not negotiate her dignity. Season listened fully now, not as a man seeking answers, but as one receiving consequence. "I raised him in peace," Eris continued. "That mattered to me. I can see that," he replied, glancing briefly toward Luca. She followed his gaze, then returned to him. "He doesn't know conflict. That was intentional." Season did not interrupt. He did not challenge the choice. He recognized conviction when he heard it. Eris did not apologize for waiting. She did not justify silence. She did not frame herself as selfless or brave. She framed herself as consistent. "I didn't want him to be someone's responsibility before he was someone's joy," she said. The words landed quietly. They carried weight without accusation. Season lowered his eyes for a moment, then lifted them again. "I understand what you're saying," he said. She believed him. Eris had rehearsed this conversation in fragments over the years. Not for defense, for clarity. She had promised herself she would speak plainly if the moment came. She kept that promise. "I'm not asking you for anything," she added. "I never have." Her voice did not waver. It did not harden. It remained steady. Season felt that steadiness. It framed everything she said. The truth had been spoken without anger, without pressure, without demand. That honesty did not soften the moment. It sharpened it. And Season understood that what came next would be shaped not by words, but by how he chose to respond over time. Season did not speak right away. The room continued around them. Glasses clinked softly. Laughter surfaced in pockets. None of it reached him. He stood still, holding the weight of what he had just learned without trying to set it down too quickly. Shock arrived first, not as disbelief, but as recalibration. His mind rearranged years with a precision that unsettled him. Meetings remembered, travel logged, decisions made without awareness of what existed beyond his line of sight. He did not question the truth. He questioned time. Grief followed close behind, not dramatic, not loud, a quiet recognition of moments that would never return. First steps unseen, early words unheard, ordinary days that shaped a child's sense of safety, lived without him. His chest tightened. He pressed his tongue to the roof of his mouth, steadying himself. He did not want emotion to spill where it might overwhelm Eris or Luca. Loss settled deepest. Not the loss of Aris. He had accepted that long ago. The loss of participation, of presence, of the chance to be there before identity hardened into memory. He looked at Luca again. The boy stood calmly, unaware of the shift occurring inches away. Season saw now what that calm represented. Years of consistency. A childhood formed without chaos. Season felt respect alongside grief. Respect for how Aris had carried this alone. For the discipline it took to choose peace repeatedly. For the restraint that kept bitterness from shaping a child's world. He did not feel entitled to anger. He felt accountable. "I missed everything," he said quietly. Not as a complaint, as acknowledgement. Eris did not correct him. She did not comfort him. She allowed the truth to sit where it belonged. Season understood that this was not about what he felt now. It was about what he did next. Shock would pass. Grief would settle. Loss would remain, but it did not have to define the future. He did not ask for forgiveness. He did not ask for access. He did not promise change in words. He stood with the weight and accepted it. "I don't blame you," he said, meeting Eris's eyes. "I see what you built." She nodded once. That was the point. The exchange carried respect without reconciliation, understanding without resolution. Season realized then that accountability did not begin with defense or regret. It began with acknowledgement of consequence. He had not known. But not knowing had still shaped outcomes. And now, knowing demanded more than feeling. It demanded presence. The weight of time pressed in slowly, not all at once. Season's eyes returned to Luca, but this time they carried memory layered over observation. He did not imagine specific moments. He sensed absence as a whole. Years lived without him present. Years that shaped a child's sense of the world. He noticed how Luca stood without restlessness, how he listened without distraction, how he trusted his surroundings. These traits did not form overnight. They grew through repetition, through presence offered consistently. Season recognized the scale of what he had missed. Not milestones marked on calendars, but the quiet moments in between. Bedtime routines, morning rituals, the subtle shaping of confidence that happened through return and reliability. He felt grief again, but it did not overwhelm him. It clarified. "I can't recover time," he said softly. "No," Eris replied. "But you can decide what you do with what's ahead." Her words did not challenge him. They oriented him. Season understood that absence, even without intent, left consequence. That responsibility did not begin when one learned the truth. It began when one chose how to respond to it. He did not ask to meet Luca then. He did not step closer. He respected the child's rhythm. He respected Eris's boundaries. He understood that presence could not be demanded. It had to be earned through patience. The realization humbled him. Power had taught him to move quickly. This demanded stillness. He took a breath, grounding himself again. "I don't expect anything," he said. "I want to understand how to show up without disrupting what you've built." Eris met his gaze. She saw sincerity, not urgency. "That mattered. That will take time," she said. "I'm prepared for that," he replied. This recognition shifted everything, not toward reunion, toward responsibility. Season accepted that the years missed could not be reclaimed. They could only inform future choices. He did not blame circumstance. He did not frame absence as necessary sacrifice. He owned it as consequence of prioritization. That ownership marked the beginning of change. Luca looked up at Eris then, tugging her sleeve lightly. "Are we leaving soon?" "Yes," she said gently. "Soon." Season stepped back slightly, giving space. He understood that restraint now mattered more than closeness. As Eris and Luca prepared to leave, Season watched without interruption. He did not insert himself. He did not ask for more. He had learned something essential. Absence had shaped the past. Presence would shape whatever came next. Season did not leave the venue with answers. He left with questions he did not try to silence. The drive home passed without distraction. No calls, no music. He allowed the quiet to hold him, not to escape what surfaced, but to let it settle fully. For the first time in years, he did not reach for productivity as refuge. He replayed the evening carefully, not to correct it, to understand it. Eris had not accused him. She had not confronted him. She had not demanded explanation or apology. That restraint stripped away every defense he might have leaned on. There was nothing to argue against, nothing to justify, only truth. Season recognized how easily he once framed absence as necessity. Growth required sacrifice. Expansion required focus. He had believed love could wait until space opened again. Now he saw the flaw in that belief. Presence was not something earned later. It was something practiced consistently or lost quietly. He reflected on how often he postponed personal moments, confident they would remain intact. How often he assumed understanding without checking whether it still existed. How easily he accepted distance as temporary rather than cumulative. None of it came from malice. That realization mattered, but it did not absolve consequence. Season understood that reacting defensively would have been easier. He could have questioned timing. He could have focused on what he did not know. He could have framed himself as excluded. Instead, he chose reflection. He asked himself when he had last made space without calculation, when he had last shown up without agenda, when he had last measured success by presence rather than progress. The answers unsettled him. He recognized how often he responded to emotional moments with efficiency rather than engagement, how quickly he adapted to distance rather than interrogating it. How easily he accepted Aris's patience as permanence. That acceptance had cost him years. Season did not feel anger toward her. He felt responsibility toward the truth. He acknowledged that reflection did not undo absence, but it reshaped how he would approach what came next. Accountability, he realized, was not about correcting the past publicly. It was about changing patterns privately. He did not rehearse speeches. He did not plan gestures. He understood that action would speak louder than explanation. The question was not how to fix what had happened. The question was how to live differently now. Season allowed that question to remain unanswered. He did not rush clarity. He trusted that reflection needed time to deepen before action followed. This restraint marked a shift. For the first time, he did not seek to manage outcome. He sought to understand cause, and understanding began within. Season resisted the instinct to assign fault. It would have been easy. Blame offered direction when understanding felt heavy. He chose otherwise. He examined the story without rewriting it to protect himself. Aris had not taken anything from him. She had not withheld truth to punish. She had made choices within the space his absence created. That distinction mattered. He acknowledged how tempting it would be to focus on what he had missed because of her silence. But that framing collapsed under scrutiny. Silence had not appeared in isolation. It had grown inside a relationship already stretched thin by his priorities. Season recognized that blame would offer relief without growth. It would reduce complexity into something manageable and false. He refused that shortcut. He thought about how Aris had lived during those years. Alone in responsibility, careful in language, consistent in routine. She had built stability without using his absence as leverage. That required discipline. He respected that discipline. Blame would have required him to ignore her clarity, to dismiss the calm boundaries she had held, to overlook the way she answered him plainly without defensiveness. He did not want a story where he emerged wronged. He wanted one where he emerged honest. Season reflected on how often power insulated him from consequence. In business, mistakes could be absorbed. In life, absence compounded. He saw now that blaming Aris would repeat the same pattern. Deflect responsibility outward, avoid discomfort inward. He chose differently. I wasn't there, he said to himself quietly, not as confession, as fact. He acknowledged how his life had rewarded distance, how success praised endurance while ignoring cost, how he had learned to equate provision with care. That belief no longer held. Season accepted that Aris had protected her peace because he had not protected their connection. He accepted that she had prioritized stability because he had prioritized expansion. There was no resentment in this understanding, only alignment. Blame would have demanded argument. Accountability demanded acceptance. He did not seek to correct her choices retroactively. He sought to understand his own. This clarity freed him from defensiveness. It allowed him to approach the future without grievance-shaping intent. Season understood that if he wanted to be present now, it would have to be without entitlement, without expectation, without framing himself as owed access. He did not blame Aris because blame would have required her to be wrong. She was not. She had been consistent. Moral thread deep in maturity begins when blame gives way to responsibility. Season named the absence without softening it. He did not dress it up as sacrifice. He did not excuse it as necessity. He called it what it was: emotional distance maintained over time, reinforced by habit, rewarded by results. He recognized how often he had been physically present but mentally elsewhere, how he had listened while preparing to leave, how he had answered while already moving forward. He had offered attention in fragments and called it balance. That reckoning stayed with him. He remembered moments that once felt harmless: canceled dinners, shortened calls, plans delayed without reschedule, each decision small, each one reasonable on its own. Together, they formed a pattern. He acknowledged that Aris had adjusted to that pattern long before she asked for space. She had met him where he stood, then quietly moved herself out of the way when he did not return. Season accepted that emotional absence did not announce itself. It accumulated. It trained others to expect less. He understood now how his focus had narrowed over time, how ambition had shaped his attention until little else fit without effort, how he had mistaken endurance for care. This acknowledgement did not arrive with shame. It arrived with clarity. He did not need to punish himself to learn. He needed to tell the truth. I wasn't available, he said aloud, alone. I didn't show up when it mattered. The words felt grounded. They did not seek forgiveness. They established responsibility. He thought about Luca again, about the calm presence the child carried, about the consistency that had shaped him. That consistency had come from someone else's availability, someone else's repetition. Easton felt the weight of what availability meant now. He did not regret ambition. He regretted what he had postponed in its name. He acknowledged that presence could not be partial when it came to relationships that required trust. Emotional absence did not mean lack of care. It meant lack of engagement. And engagement was what had been missing. Easton resolved not to minimize this truth. He would not frame himself as unaware. He had known. He had felt the distance. He had chosen not to slow down. That choice had shaped everything that followed. Acknowledging emotional absence did not demand public declaration. It demanded internal correction. He understood that words alone would not restore trust. Only consistent presence could begin that work. For the first time, Easton did not think about what he might say next. He thought about how he would show up differently. Iris did not mistake reflection for change. She respected Easton's restraint, but she did not rush to reward it. Years of building stability had taught her how easily good intentions drifted without structure. She held her boundaries with the same calm that had guided every major choice she made. When Easton reached out after the event, she responded without delay, but without invitation. Clear timing, clear tone, no ambiguity. She agreed to speak again, not because she felt compelled, but because the conversation served clarity rather than hope. She chose public spaces, short meetings, parameters defined before words were exchanged. These boundaries were not punishments. They were protections. Iris understood how quickly emotional moments blurred lines. She refused to let momentum dictate pace. She had learned the cost of adjusting too much. She would not repeat it. Easton noticed this immediately. He did not challenge it. He did not attempt to negotiate access. He accepted her terms as given. That acceptance mattered more than reassurance ever could. Iris kept Luca's routine intact. No schedule shifts. No introductions made prematurely. She did not center decisions around what felt fair to adults. She centered them around what preserved stability for a child. She communicated that plainly. He needs consistency, she said. Anything new enters slowly. Easton agreed without qualification. Iris did not interpret that agreement as progress. She interpreted it as respect. Progress would come later, if it came at all. She did not offer emotional labor to ease his adjustment. She did not explain her boundaries repeatedly. She trusted them to stand on their own. When Easton asked thoughtful questions, she answered briefly. When he asked none, she did not fill the silence. She believed silence revealed intention better than reassurance. Iris did not harden. She remained open within limits. She allowed space for accountability to show itself through behavior rather than words. Her calm boundaries did not come from fear. They came from self-trust. She knew what instability looked like. She had worked too hard to replace it with rhythm. She would not allow uncertainty to enter disguised as progress. Easton sensed that firmness. He recognized it as earned. Iris did not demand proof of change. She allowed time to test it. Boundaries held calmly often speak louder than confrontation. They clarify expectations without raising voice or tension. Iris understood that accountability required patience from both sides. Not patience that endured erosion, but patience that protected foundation. She held that line without apology. Easton learned quickly that accountability did not ask for permission. It asked for consistency. He did not announce intentions. He did not present plans. He focused on alignment between thought and action, knowing words would only matter if they matched behavior over time. He accepted Iris's boundaries without testing them. When she said no, he did not return with alternatives. When she said later, he waited. He treated her decisions as complete, not opening statements. This discipline marked a shift. Easton understood that accountability lived in repetition, showing up when invited, leaving when asked, respecting silence without filling it. He practiced restraint as deliberately as he once practiced growth. He noticed how unfamiliar that felt. In his world, progress came through acceleration. Here, progress required patience. He reflected on how often he had expected others to adapt to his pace, how rarely he had slowed to meet someone else's rhythm. That habit had shaped his absence more than any schedule ever had. Season corrected it internally first. He adjusted his calendar without explanation. He protected time not to produce, but to be available when needed. He learned how to sit with uncertainty without resolving it prematurely. Accountability did not seek reward. It accepted discomfort. Eris observed quietly. She did not praise restraint. She did not acknowledge effort aloud. She watched for patterns rather than promises. Season accepted that too. He recognized that accountability asked him to remain present even when nothing happened, to show consistency without immediate outcome, to build trust without requesting it. This inward shift mattered more than any apology could have. He no longer framed change as something to prove. He framed it as something to practice daily, in how he listened, in how he waited, in how he responded when he was not centered. He learned that accountability was not performative. It did not seek recognition. It existed whether anyone noticed or not. Eris's calm boundaries gave him clarity. They showed him where responsibility rested, not in persuasion, not in explanation, in respect. Season no longer asked himself how to regain what he had missed. He asked how to prevent repeating the same absence now that awareness existed. That question guided every decision. He understood that inward accountability created outward stability. That presence earned slowly lasted longer than presence demanded quickly. This change did not guarantee outcome. It did not promise reunion or forgiveness. It promised integrity, and integrity, Season realized, was the only foundation strong enough to hold whatever came next. Season did not attempt to rebuild trust through declarations. He understood how easily words lost value when repeated too soon. Trust, he realized, grew through exposure to pattern, not promise. He began by changing nothing that Eris had not invited him to change. When communication resumed, it stayed measured. Brief messages, clear purpose, no emotional overreach. He asked before calling. He accepted silence without filling it. He treated time as something he needed to earn, not assume. This restraint marked the beginning. Season adjusted his expectations first. He did not expect gratitude for effort. He did not look for reassurance that he was doing the right thing. He accepted uncertainty as part of accountability. He showed up when asked, and only when asked. If Eris suggested a short meeting, he arrived early and left on time. If she asked for space, he honored it fully. He did not circle back with follow-up questions meant to reopen conversation. He trusted her clarity. Trust began to shift, not because Eris felt convinced, but because she felt unpressured. She noticed how Season respected limits without resentment, how he accepted pace without complaint, how his consistency did not waver when nothing happened quickly. He did not attempt to accelerate comfort. He allowed it to form naturally, if it formed at all. Season also changed how he listened. He stopped preparing responses while others spoke. He focused on understanding rather than agreement. When Eris explained boundaries, he did not test them with hypotheticals. "I understand," he said, and then he acted like he did. That alignment mattered. Trust did not return as feeling first. It returned as absence of tension. Conversations no longer carried expectation. Silence no longer felt loaded. Eris noticed that calm settling slowly between interactions. She did not label it progress. She observed it. Season recognized that trust asked him to remain steady even when nothing rewarded him, to keep showing up the same way without outcome guaranteed. That discipline tested him more than ambition ever had. He learned patience as practice rather than waiting. There were moments when instinct urged him to explain himself, to clarify intent, to apologize again. He resisted that urge. He understood repetition weakened sincerity. Instead, he focused on alignment. Trust rebuilt quietly, through predictability, through restraint, through consistency that did not fluctuate with mood. Eris did not rush to acknowledge it. She allowed time to confirm what effort suggested. Season accepted that fully. He understood now that trust did not return because someone wanted it to. It returned because behavior made it safe to do so, and safety required time. Season did not attempt to rebuild trust through declarations. He understood how easily words lost value when repeated too soon. Trust, he realized, grew through exposure to pattern, not promise. He began by changing nothing that Eris had not invited him to change. When communication resumed, it stayed measured. Brief messages, clear purpose, no emotional overreach. He asked before calling. He accepted silence without filling it. He treated time as something he needed to earn, not assume. This restraint marked the beginning. Season adjusted his expectations first. He did not expect gratitude for effort. He did not look for reassurance that he was doing the right thing. He accepted uncertainty as part of accountability. He showed up when asked, and only when asked. If Aris suggested a short meeting, he arrived early and left on time. If she asked for space, he honored it fully. He did not circle back with follow-up questions meant to reopen conversation. He trusted her clarity. Trust began to shift, not because Aris felt convinced, but because she felt unpressured. She noticed how Season respected limits without resentment, how he accepted pace without complaint, how his consistency did not waver when nothing happened quickly. He did not attempt to accelerate comfort. He allowed it to form naturally, if it formed at all. Season also changed how he listened. He stopped preparing responses while others spoke. He focused on understanding rather than agreement. When Aris explained boundaries, he did not test them with hypotheticals. "I understand," he said, and then he acted like he did. That alignment mattered. Trust did not return as feeling first. It returned as absence of tension. Conversations no longer carried expectation. Silence no longer felt loaded. Aris noticed that calm settling slowly between interactions. She did not label it progress. She observed it. Season recognized that trust asked him to remain steady even when nothing rewarded him, to keep showing up the same way without outcome guaranteed. That discipline tested him more than ambition ever had. He learned patience as practice rather than waiting. There were moments when instinct urged him to explain himself, to clarify intent, to apologize again. He resisted that urge. He understood repetition weakened sincerity. Instead, he focused on alignment. Trust rebuilt quietly, through predictability, through restraint, through consistency that did not fluctuate with mood. Aris did not rush to acknowledge it. She allowed time to confirm what effort suggested. Season accepted that fully. He understood now that trust did not return because someone wanted it to. It returned because behavior made it safe to do so. And safety required time. Season approached Luca the way he approached everything else now, without assumption. He did not introduce himself as anything. He did not claim a title. He did not position himself as owed connection because of biology or circumstance. He understood that presence had to be invited, not asserted. When Aris agreed to brief, neutral interactions, Season followed her lead exactly. Public settings, short durations, clear expectations. He treated these moments as opportunities to observe rather than perform. He greeted Luca politely. No pressure, no declarations, just acknowledgement. A calm smile, a gentle hello. Luca responded the way children do when they feel safe. He observed first. He asked questions later. He did not cling. He did not withdraw. He assessed. Season respected that process. He did not rush to fill silence. He allowed pauses to exist. He answered questions when asked, and only those questions. He did not offer explanations meant to impress. He did not attempt to earn affection through gifts or gestures. He understood that entitlement would fracture trust faster than absence ever had. Showing up meant being reliable, not remarkable. If Aris said they would meet for 20 minutes, Season planned for 20 minutes. He did not arrive early in hopes of extending time. He did not linger at the end. He respected the structure because structure protected Luca. He learned to read Luca's cues. When the child leaned closer, Season stayed present. When Luca stepped back, Season gave space. He did not interpret distance as rejection. He interpreted it as regulation. Luca noticed this. Children trust adults who listen without correcting, who respond without pushing, who allow curiosity to unfold naturally. Season never asked Luca to call him anything. He never hinted at relationship. He stayed within the role Aris defined, and he stayed there consistently. Aris watched closely, not for perfection, for restraint. She noticed how Season accepted moments that felt small, how he did not try to transform them into milestones, how he allowed connection to build without naming it. That humility mattered. Showing up without entitlement meant accepting that Luca's comfort mattered more than Season's need to connect. It meant prioritizing stability over speed. Season practiced this discipline carefully. He did not falter when progress felt slow. He did not grow impatient when familiarity did not arrive quickly. He understood that trust built through respect lasted longer than trust built through urgency. Each time he showed up the same way, something settled further. Not attachment yet. Familiarity. And familiarity was the foundation. Season learned quickly that fatherhood did not announce itself. It arrived in details so small they could be missed if attention drifted. It began with listening. Luca spoke carefully, choosing words with intention. Season noticed how often the child paused before answering, as if weighing accuracy over speed. Season mirrored that pace. He waited. He allowed silence to do its work. Small moments followed, standing side by side while Luca examined something ordinary, sitting nearby without directing the activity, answering questions with honesty that fit the moment, then stopping. He learned when to speak and when to stay quiet. Fatherhood, he realized, was not instruction first. It was presence without interference. Season paid attention to routine, how Luca expected things to happen in a certain order, how predictability steadied him. He did not disrupt that rhythm. He adapted to it. If a meeting was set for a park bench, Season arrived with nothing planned. He let Luca decide what mattered: a leaf, a passing sound, a thought spoken out loud. He responded with interest, not correction. There were no grand gestures, no attempts to create memories prematurely. Season understood that memory formed naturally when safety existed. He learned how to observe Luca's cues. When attention faded, Season did not push. When curiosity sparked, he followed it without leading. This restraint did not feel passive. It felt intentional. Season discovered how grounding it was to slow his internal pace to match a child's, to notice what mattered without needing to shape it, to accept moments as complete without improvement. Fatherhood taught him patience in a way ambition never had. He noticed how Luca responded to reliability, how the child relaxed when Season showed up the same way each time. Calm, present, unrushed. Eris watched these interactions closely. She did not intervene unless needed. She allowed space for learning to unfold naturally. Season appreciated that trust. He did not take it lightly. He also learned how much of fatherhood involved restraint, holding back opinions, limiting assumptions, allowing development to move at its own pace. He resisted the urge to teach before understanding, to guide before observing, to define before experiencing. Each small moment added weight, not dramatic weight, real weight, the kind that grounded him. Season realized that fatherhood did not require perfection. It required consistency, attention, respect, and those qualities were built one moment at a time. Season understood that his relationship with Luca could not exist independently of Aris's trust. Respecting her boundaries was not a condition. It was the foundation. He never approached Luca without first confirming with Aris. He did not assume access because progress had been made. He treated permission as ongoing, not permanent. When Aris set limits, Season accepted them without negotiation. He did not ask for exceptions. He did not attempt to reframe restrictions as obstacles. He recognized them as safeguards. Aris noticed this immediately. She watched how Season responded when boundaries stayed firm, how he did not bristle, how he did not withdraw, how his demeanor remained steady even when plans changed. That steadiness mattered. Season communicated clearly. If something conflicted, he said so early. If something required adjustment, he proposed alternatives without pressure. He did not frame flexibility as entitlement. Aris valued that clarity. It allowed her to remain calm rather than vigilant. She continued to prioritize Luca's routine. Bedtimes remained consistent. School schedules stayed intact. She did not bend structure to accommodate progress. Season supported that fully. He learned to coordinate around stability rather than disrupt it. Season also respected emotional boundaries. He did not revisit past decisions unless invited. He did not ask Aris to explain herself repeatedly. He did not seek reassurance that his effort was noticed. He allowed silence when needed. He filled it only when clarity was required. Aris responded with the same directness she always had. She spoke when something mattered. She withheld commentary when it did not. Their communication settled into something functional and honest. Respecting boundaries required discipline. There were moments when Season wanted to say more, to explain intentions, to clarify growth. He restrained himself. He understood that explanation without request often felt like persuasion. He chose restraint instead. Eris felt the difference. Boundaries remained intact without friction. That absence of tension allowed trust to deepen naturally. She did not feel the need to defend her choices. She did not feel pressured to accelerate progress. She felt respected. This respect shaped everything that followed. Season recognized that power did not build connection. Consistency did. That presence gained meaning only when paired with respect. He accepted that boundaries did not block intimacy. They protected it. By honoring Eris's limits consistently, Season showed that change was not situational. It was structural, and structure, Eris knew, was what sustained peace. Reconnection did not arrive as decision. It arrived as recognition repeated often enough to feel steady. Eris noticed it first in the absence of tension. Conversations no longer carried guarded pauses. Silence no longer felt like distance. Time between interactions stretched without strain. They spoke more often, but not longer. Exchanges stayed clear, purposeful. Neither reached for familiarity that had not yet returned. They allowed it to surface on its own. Season never assumed closeness. He did not reference shared history as leverage. He treated every interaction as new ground rather than continuation. Eris respected that. She felt no urgency to define what they were becoming. She had learned how clarity arrived best when allowed space. She did not ask where this path led. She paid attention to how it felt. It felt calm. They met occasionally without Luca present, always by agreement. Public places, neutral settings, conversations that focused on now rather than then. They spoke about work, about books, about routines, not about loss or regret. Those topics stayed untouched unless invited. Season listened differently now. He did not interrupt. He did not rush to relate. He absorbed what Eris said without translating it into response. That listening mattered. Eris noticed how easily she spoke without editing. She did not protect him from truth, but she did not burden him with it either. She trusted him to hear what she shared without defense. Reconnection took shape through repetition, through arriving when expected, through leaving when agreed, through consistency that did not vary with mood. They did not hold hands. They did not lean into memory. They rebuilt familiarity without touching what had once existed. This restraint protected dignity on both sides. Eris did not feel pulled backward. She felt grounded forward. She trusted herself to notice shifts before they mattered. Season trusted the process without pushing outcome. There were moments when laughter surfaced unexpectedly, familiar humor returning without invitation, shared understanding rising briefly, then settling again. Neither rushed to name it. They allowed the connection to evolve at its own pace, without fantasy, without pressure, without rewriting history to justify present closeness. Reconnection was not about reclaiming what they lost. It was about discovering whether something new could exist without cost. Eris stayed attentive to her agency. She made choices consciously. She did not surrender ground she had earned. Season stayed attentive to alignment. He adjusted when needed. He did not resist boundaries that remained. This reconnection felt earned, not assumed. It did not promise permanence. It offered possibility, and possibility approached carefully carried dignity. Romance returned without announcement. It did not arrive through apology or memory. It surfaced through how they treated the present, through choices made without referencing what had been lost. Eris noticed the change in herself first. She felt no pull to revisit old moments, no need to measure progress against the past. What drew her closer now was who Season was becoming through action. He did not speak about regret. He did not revisit what he wished he had done. He focused on what he was doing now. That discipline mattered to her. Their conversations deepened naturally. They spoke about values, about pace, about what stability meant in different seasons of life. They did not idealize love. They discussed responsibility with clarity. Season never framed the past as something to repair. He treated it as something to respect. That restraint protected Eris from feeling pulled backward. Romance showed up in attentiveness, in how he remembered small details, in how he adjusted without being asked, in how he allowed Eris to lead when she needed to. Eris responded without losing herself. She did not soften boundaries to make closeness easier. She allowed intimacy to build within structure. They shared moments that felt gentle rather than intense. A walk after dinner, a shared silence that did not require filling. Familiarity grew without urgency. This romance did not seek to prove itself. It rested on trust, earned slowly. It valued safety over excitement. Eris felt no pressure to define the relationship. She did not need labels to feel secure. She paid attention to how her body responded. Calm replaced vigilance. Ease replaced calculation. Season noticed this too. He did not rush to name it. He allowed her comfort to guide pace. They did not avoid discussing the future. They approached it carefully. Without promises shaped by fear, without commitments made to soothe uncertainty, romance built on growth felt different from romance driven by regret. It did not seek redemption. It sought alignment. Eris knew the difference well enough to recognize it. She did not feel saved. She felt respected. Season did not feel entitled. He felt grateful. This romance carried no illusion of perfection. It accepted complexity without dramatizing it. It did not ask them to forget the past. It asked them to honor what they had learned from it. That difference made all the difference. Luca did not gain a father through declaration. He gained one through repetition. Season never positioned himself as a rival. He remained steady, available, predictable. He showed up the same way each time, without shifting tone or expectation. Luca noticed this long before he named it. Children sense reliability through pattern. Luca began to anticipate Season's presence not with excitement, but with ease. That ease mattered more than enthusiasm ever could. Season learned Luca's rhythms without altering them. School mornings stayed the same. Bedtimes stayed protected. He did not ask for changes that favored access over stability. When Luca spoke, Season listened fully. He did not interrupt. He did not redirect. He allowed the child to finish thoughts without correction. These small acts accumulated weight. They shared ordinary moments, sitting side by side, walking short distances, observing things without commentary. Season learned how much of fatherhood lived inside quiet proximity. He did not attempt to teach before understanding. He allowed curiosity to guide interaction. When Luca asked questions, Season answered honestly, but briefly. He did not overwhelm. Luca began to seek Season out naturally, not constantly, not urgently, in moments that felt safe. Eris watched this carefully. She did not step in unless needed. She allowed connection to grow within the framework she had built. She noticed how Luca trusted Season's consistency, how he did not test boundaries repeatedly, how he accepted Season's presence as stable rather than surprising. That stability mattered. Season never framed himself as correcting absence. He did not apologize to Luca for years missed. He focused on being present now. Luca responded to that focus. He asked Season to sit closer, to watch something together, to listen. These invitations came without fanfare. They arrived quietly. Season accepted each one without overreaction. Fatherhood took shape through these moments, not dramatic, not symbolic, real. Season learned how to follow rather than lead, how to match pace rather than set it, how to be reliable rather than impressive. Eris saw Luca grow more confident in shared spaces. He did not cling. He did not withdraw. He adjusted naturally. That balance told her everything. Luca gained a father not through explanation, but through presence that did not fluctuate. And presence, offered consistently, reshaped what absence once defined. Eris never surrendered herself to the comfort of reunion. She remained aware of her choices, not out of fear, but out of respect for the life she had built. Agency had carried her through absence. She would not set it aside simply because connection had returned. She continued to decide her pace, when to meet, when to step back, when to allow closeness. Each choice came from intention, not reaction. Season did not challenge this. He did not frame her boundaries as hesitation. He understood them as clarity. Eris felt no need to prove strength anymore. She had lived it. What mattered now was preservation, of rhythm, of calm, of self-trust. She noticed how easily she could speak her needs without apology, how often Season responded with acceptance rather than persuasion. That response reinforced her sense of control. She did not feel pulled into compromise that cost her stability. She felt invited into alignment that respected it. Eris continued to center Luca's routine. Decisions about school, rest, and daily structure remained hers. She consulted Season when it felt appropriate. She did not defer out of courtesy. This balance mattered deeply. She remembered the version of herself who once waited, adjusted, and hoped awareness would arrive on its own. She honored that woman without returning to her patterns. Eris did not rush to redefine her identity within a partnership. She did not merge lives prematurely. She valued autonomy alongside connection. Her independence did not weaken romance. It clarified it. She felt grounded enough to choose closeness rather than drift into it. That difference shaped everything. When uncertainty surfaced, she addressed it directly. She did not suppress questions to maintain peace. She spoke calmly, trusting that clarity strengthened trust. Easton met her honesty with steadiness. He did not deflect. He did not minimize. He listened and adjusted. That exchange reinforced her agency rather than eroding it. Eris recognized how easy it would have been to lose herself again in comfort. She resisted that ease consciously. She chose presence with herself alongside presence with others. She did not feel guilty for protecting her autonomy. She knew how much it had cost to reclaim it. Agency allowed her to love without shrinking. She did not need permission to move at her own pace. She did not need reassurance to hold her ground. Eris stood fully in her choices, and those choices shaped a connection built on respect rather than dependency. She had not returned to who she was before. She had arrived as who she had become. Easton did not mark his change with milestones. He measured it through repetition. Weeks passed, then months. His presence stayed steady, not heightened, not fading. The same tone, the same pace, the same respect. He did not revert when comfort grew. He did not accelerate when trust softened. He stayed consistent when novelty wore off. That consistency mattered more than any declaration ever could. Change proved itself in restraint. He continued to protect Luca's routine without being reminded. He coordinated schedules instead of asking others to bend. He showed up prepared, calm, and attentive. Even on days when work demanded more than usual, he did not announce sacrifices. He simply made them. Eris noticed how his priorities shifted quietly, how availability stopped being conditional, how presence no longer competed with power. These changes did not seek validation. They held shape on their own. Easton learned how to be dependable without control. He did not lead by command. He supported by alignment. He allowed others to remain whole rather than absorbing them into his orbit. This time, growth did not come at the cost of connection. He accepted that trust remained something he tended, not something he earned once. He stayed alert to patterns. He corrected himself early. He did not wait for distance to reappear before responding. When mistakes happened, he acknowledged them immediately. No justification, no explanation meant to soften impact. Just responsibility. Eris felt the difference, not as relief, as assurance. She no longer needed to monitor stability. It existed without her guarding it. Luca responded to this reliability with ease. His sense of security remained intact. His confidence grew. He did not experience disruption as change unfolded around him. That outcome mattered most. Easton did not frame himself as redeemed. He framed himself as present. Redemption implied an ending. Presence required continuation. He accepted that this life did not reward shortcuts. It rewarded consistency. Love, in this form, did not rush. It did not demand. It did not erase the past to feel complete. It honored time. Eris, Luca, and Easton did not arrive at a perfect ending. They arrived at a sustainable one shaped by dignity rather than urgency, by action rather than promise, by patience rather than power. And this is where the story rests. If stories about timing, accountability, and love shaped by respect speak to you, like this video. Share it with someone who values growth, and subscribe to Love Tales with Mr. Easton. These stories remind us that real change is quiet, consistent, and earned over time. Because the strongest love is not the loudest one. It is the one that shows up